Welcome everyone. My name is Jane West. I'm the platform assistant for today. A big welcome to Mark Hicks, who is returning to speak with us. He's a licensed Unity teacher like our own Kay Wood, and we're delighted to have you back, Mark. Welcome. And of course, there'll be more music by our very own Barbara Wilkinson. I'm going to start now with our opening prayer. I've taken this from A Course in Miracles. I am working through the daily lessons in A Course in Miracles, and there are moments when you're just taken by something you read. And this is my opening and closing prayers are from the lessons in A Course in Miracles, and these are some writings that really resonated with me, and I hope they will with you as well. I invite you to close your eyes and turn inward. I feel the love of God within me now. There is a light in us the world cannot perceive. And with its eyes, we will not see this light, for we are blinded by the world. Yet we have eyes to see it. It is there for us to look upon. It was not placed in us to be kept hidden from our sight. This light is a reflection of the thought we practice now, to feel the love of God within us. That is to see the world anew, shining in innocence, alive with hope, and blessed with perfect clarity and love. Amen. Shall we all feel the love of God within us anew?
Have you ever had a song that played in your mind and it was so powerful that it seemed to be a soundtrack for your life, at least your life at that moment? My sister-in-law, who is Belgian, she turned 66 yesterday, and she called us, and she had heard somewhere Route 66, the American song Route 66, because she's 66 years old. And she was so excited. She wants to come to the United States, land in Dallas, Texas, and drive to Los Angeles along Route 66. And hopefully along the way, she will stand on a corner in Kingman, Arizona, and it'll be a fine sight, and there will be some guy in a flatboard truck turning around to take a look at her. She's totally obsessed with the song. And we find from time to time that songs seem to drive our life. And I got thinking about songs and how they can kind of define our church. For those of you who are Catholic, if I were to ask you what is the song that defines the Catholic Church, many people would probably say Ave Maria. And what they mean by that is when they hear Ave Maria, something in their deep subconscious mind brings up a feeling, good or bad, about the Catholic Church. But the song is associated in a very tight way with the Catholic Church. If I were to ask a Methodist, they would probably say Amazing Grace, talking about John Newton and the story of slavery, American slavery. And so songs seem to define not only our lives, but they can define our church. And 2 weeks ago, I received a communication from a website called thearda.com. And that is the Association of Religious Professionals who do surveys of primarily the American public about religion and spirituality. And they had come out with a new study where they asked 3,600 people about different words that define their spirituality and define their religion. And the words that they offered to these people were purpose, morality, values, belonging, peace, inspiration, love, structure, and a few others. And they asked actually 4 questions: what words define it the most, what words define it the least, what words define your religion, what words define your spirituality. And one word was chosen for all 4 categories over the others, and that was peace. 66% of the people said that peace defines their spirituality. It wasn't quite that high for defining their religion, but even the reverse, it was the least referenced item. And so if Amazing Grace defines Methodism and Ave Maria may define Catholicism, I ask at a kind of a basic level, if there's one song that seems to be defining over a long period of time unity, what is it? And fortunately, the survey that I just quoted, Peace, seems to be our defining song. And I think there are many wonderful songs in unity, but the peace song, Let There Be Peace on Earth and Let It Begin With Me, I think clearly for the past, since it was written in the 1950s, has taken on a defining role for unity. That doesn't mean we need to play it all the time. It doesn't mean we necessarily need to use it, but we do need to be aware of its subconscious impact on how we relate in our religious communities. And it goes to show that at least statistically, most of us as typical North Americans rank peace as something that is extremely important to not only our religion, but to our spirituality. And so I want to move with that a little bit and talk about what is peace and how might we bring it through our spiritual and religious institutions. Now, the song says, "Let it begin with me," and then it goes on and it says with, and excuse the language, but is with God as our Father, as our Creator, brothers, family, all are we. So when the song is sung, it's not really talking about inner peace. It begins talking about social peace, peace with others, peace in a communal effect, peace in society. And there's a study that, or a training that I went through a year ago, 2 years ago actually, in Silver Spring. And it's based on a book called The Anatomy of Peace. It's from an organization called the Arbinger Institute. And it's arguably the most commonly used secular training for police departments, governments, and organizations to help people achieve peace within their organizations. It is the equivalent in secular society to what the Mennonite peace training is in religious society. And I want to speak about it for a moment because it begins with an assessment of either we are in a heartfelt space of peace or we are in a heartfelt place of war. It is dualistic, I acknowledge, but we begin with understanding that on a daily, moment-by-moment basis, as we interact with others, as we interact with the events of life, we're either at peace or we're at war. And to achieve peace, according to Arbinger, we have to look at others. In other words, our understanding of others, our awareness of others is actually more important than our understanding of ourselves. And that's a crucial concept, and I'll come back to why that is true in a moment, but just hold on to the concept that how I see others is more important than how I see myself. And how I see others can be either as an object or as a person. And when we see people as an object, what we see are either perhaps a vehicle to get my needs met. I may see an obstruction that prevents me from getting my needs met, or I may see someone who's just irrelevant, who I don't have any concern for. But if I choose any of those three, then what I have done is chosen to see the person as an object, the other as an object, not as a person. And the Arbinger training goes on saying that if we do that, if that is the way we see others as objects, then we will make decisions based on that. And the decisions we will make will either be loving or not loving. And so decisions come from our views of others. And when we make a decision, either loving or unloving, the next thing we do is we justify it. And by justifying it, we allow ourselves to be free of shame, guilt, or joy for the decision, for the choice that we have made. And so the justification is our self-image. And I can see myself as someone who is right. I can see myself as someone who deserves. I can see myself as someone who is hurt. These are justifications that explain the decision I made to either be loving or to not be loving based on the image I have of others as being either objects or being people. Now, in theological circles, the last theologian to really address this was a Jewish theologian named Martin Buber. And many of you might be aware of him because he's so well known. And he spoke and wrote immediately after World War I. And his book is called I and Thou. It's a very well-known book. And Buber says in there that either we see people as a thou or as a you. And his point is, if we see someone as a thou, then we see them as people, not as objects. And so let me kind of recap what we're doing here. We're declaring that peace begins with a mindset. We're declaring that peace begins with a heart at war or a heart at peace. And from there, we make assessments of others as objects or as people. And from there, we make decisions to be helpful or to be hindrances. And it's only after we make those decisions that we make justifications. And the justifications define our self-image. So the point is, the self-image, it comes at the end of the process. And it's going to be very difficult in a religious setting or a spiritual setting to tell someone that their self-image needs to change, or to tell ourselves that our self-image needs to change, when the real problem is 3 or 4 steps back, talking about a war, a heart at war, a mind at peace. So that is secular training of peacemaking today. And let me just kind of give you a preview of how Arbinger addresses that. They have us go backwards in the process. What Arbinger will do is have us look at our justifications. Are we saying, I can't, I'm a victim? Are we saying, I deserve? Are we saying that I'm right? In other words, after we have an interaction with someone, can we walk away from it do we walk away with it with a justification that I'm right? Do we walk away with it with a justification that I deserve if I took advantage of someone? Do we walk away from it with a perspective of I'm hurt? Do we walk away with it with a perspective of I can't, I'm not capable? If those justifications are there, then almost for sure we have a heart at war. And if we have a heart at war, we will not have peace. That is the best training out there today from a very large organization right down the street from most of where most of you live. It has no religious or real ethical connotations, but it will appeal to a wide perspective of people. Now, why is this important? There's a book called Branding Faith by a guy named Phil Cook. And most people haven't heard about Phil Cook, but all I can say is he is probably the best known marketing specialist for some very well-known people. And he, including one of which is Joel Osteen. If you just, do a Google on Phil Cook, C-O-K-E, it'll come up. I mentioned this in a workshop 3 years ago, and one of our Unity ministers called up Phil Cook and engaged him and is working with him to redefine the perspective of the church. But I want to ask you, when people come into the church, what is it that they see? Do they see enlightenment? Do they see transformation? Do they see structure? Do they see community? Do they see love? Do they see inspiration? Most importantly, do they see peace? Because statistically, most people that come and visit your church are looking for peace, as we all are. And so it's a very important message to bring forth. And the title of this talk is The Most Important Song in Unity. I've identified that as the peace song. But there was more, and the argument, the title is, and why we should open our service with it. Now in Unity, most churches that use the peace song will close with it. We all know that. We get up and we stand in a circle, we hold hands, and we have this little love fest and sing the peace song. And I want to encourage Unity churches to consider opening with the peace song. Because first impressions last, we know that. And when I get up in the morning and I sit on the couch, my first thoughts seem to define my day. And the opening hymn or song of your worship service will define the service. But most importantly, visitors who come will get their first impression as the peace song. And so as unorthodox as it may be, it's entirely appropriate to open a Unity service with the peace song. And there's one particular advantage in doing that, and that is that no one else is. And it may be that the board of your church or another church is looking for a way to distinguish their service from another service or another church. And I can say that the ability for people to say, hey, you know what? That congregation opens with the peace song. I've never seen that before. That at least gets the talk about peace, and it distinguishes the congregation. And so my suggestion is to consider opening, at least from time to time, with the peace song, and then pursuing a message of peace. Because it is the most important thing according to the surveys of what people want. Thank you. So let's get quiet and go within and know that there is something somewhere that is speaking to us that says we can be at peace. There is no need for war. There is no need for judgment. There is no need for justification. Can we go to that place where we let go and we allow the Spirit of God to take charge of our life and our affairs? And I want you to enter into an experience and imagine yourself as a young child, an Arab child who lives in Jerusalem. And your family and extended family make their living by selling souvenirs and tourism services to the American travelers who come to Jerusalem. And your job as a young child is to stand on a corner and to engage people who are obviously American tourists. And I want you to imagine that you're on the corner and you share this corner, and you have shared this corner for several years with an old man named Mordecai. And Mordecai is an old Jew who has been blind since birth. Mordecai has no income, and his only means of support is to stand on the corner that you share with him. And he asks for alms from the tourists. And you have shared this corner with Mordecai for several years. And you never speak. You never talk. Because your family lost a family member in an uprising several years ago. And the bitterness resides in your heart. And so day by day, you are on the corner next to Mordecai. And Mordecai cries out, alms, alms, and he has a sign. And your job is to go and to pester the tourists, to distract them, so that you can lead them to your family who will offer tours and trinkets. You both have needs. Your needs are legitimate. Mordecai's needs are legitimate. But something happened this day. Mordecai tripped on the sidewalk, and his purse broke open, and all his coins went flying out into the sidewalk and into the street. And you have a choice. Your choice is to ignore him. He's scrambling around on his knees trying to find his coins. You see the coins. You have a choice. You've never spoken to one, but you have an opportunity to help him find his coins. Now, the question isn't whether you help him or not. The question is, how will you feel if you make the decision to help him pick up his coins? Each and every day, we have the choice. The choice to honor, to see others as people, or the choice to betray and to see others as objects. Call to mind the choice in your life. the co-worker who has not been able to be successful and has chosen to blame you. The beggar on the street who bothers you each day on your way to work. The child who whines and complains. How do we see? Do we see objects, or do we see people? And in this now moment, we know that God, Spirit of God, speaks to us. It says, pick up the damn coins. What Mordecai and Mordecai's people did wasn't fair. But that is irrelevant. Because if we return good, then we honor ourselves. We honor our highest capacity. We know this. Each person on this broadcast knows this. And in moments of prayer like this right now, we can declare, let there be peace on earth. And let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth. The peace that was meant to be. With God as our creator, family all are we. Let there be peace on earth. And let it begin with me. And in closing, I'd like to ask Barbara if she would play the peace song. And we each can hum along, muted or unmuted, however. And make the decision that for each Mordecai in our life, we will let peace be on earth, and it will begin with me. Barbara?
So again, this is from A Course in Miracles. The peace of God is shining in me now. You may want to close your eyes and take this in. The peace of God is shining in us now, and from our hearts extends around the world. It pauses to caress each living thing and leaves a blessing with it that remains forever and forever. What it gives must be eternal. It removes all thoughts of the ephemeral and the valueless. It brings renewal to all tired hearts and lights all vision as it passes by. All of its gifts are given everyone, and everyone unites in giving thanks to you who give and to you who have received. Amen.